Hi there, I'm Jim.
And I'm Claire.
Let's talk teaching. Welcome to Let's Talk Teaching, a podcast from the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology here at Illinois State University. I'm Jim G. Joining me today, our director, Dr. Claire Lamonica. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, we're doing a little update episode today.
We are.
We talked originally about the course you're teaching this semester well before it started. You were in the planning process, and just the way time and space kind of warp when you're doing a podcast, we are already halfway through your course. It also kind of has to do with the particulars of that course. So we wanted to do a little update today.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, well, you were kind of floated back into the building after your first day of teaching, and I knew, it's time for an update.
I did.
So tell us, first of all, the course is called LINK. What does that mean again, and what's it all about?
It's IDS 122, Freshman Seminar Learning in Communities. It's about transition to college.
Okay.
So there are 3 elements that are shared among all sections. And those are civic engagement, diversity. They go to the human library, and career and major exploration. And then, other than that, we're doing some things about how learning works and time management and some of the things that they were kind of worried about at the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
and this is
it's great. But it's only 8 weeks long.
Right.
So as of Wednesday. A couple of days from now, we're halfway through. We're done with our first 4 weeks.
So it's already midterm for you.
Yes, it's midterm. Yikes.
And we should also mention, I think you had mentioned before that students self-select into this class. So
Yes.
this is not a
No,
special
it's not
program
for-
that they're
it's
in.
not
Or
for a population of at-risk students or
Right.
anything like that. I think that athletes are required to take some sort of class like this, not necessarily this one. But other than that, they're just self-selected.
So it's midterm, but let's talk about before the class started first, because one of the things we talked about in that last episode, which of course we'll link to in the show notes for today's episode, one of the things we talked about was preparing your syllabus, that you were just getting ready to do that. So I wanted to ask you, are you happy with the syllabus as you ended up with it?
You know what? I am pretty happy with the syllabus. I don't yet have a course schedule. So that's a little embarrassing.
You heard it here first,
yes,
folks.
you heard it here first. I've told Pam Ambrose, who's the associate director of University College, and she sort of oversees this course. And so I have made my confession to Mother Pam, and she seems to be okay with it. I'm actually just kind of having to feel my way through it based on what the students seem to need and how much time things take. I'm struggling a little bit with timing. It's a 50-minute class. It's a long time since I taught a 50-minute course.
Too short or too long?
Too short.
Okay.
Pretty much for every session, I plan what we're going to do, and then I go back and I cut it by a third.
Yeah.
So I just didn't have good luck trying to sort of, except for just the big things. Okay, well, we'll do community engagement first, and then we'll do human library, and then we'll do, career and major exploration. So I sort of put those chunks in, but I'm filling in the in-betweens as we go.
Well, Mother Pam is a friend of the show, and
I
know she is forgiving. You are going through now, and you're approaching midterm. And we also talked about, we've always talked about the importance of assessing a course at midterm.
Yes.
What did you finally decide on as far as how you're going to do that?
Well, actually, I just worked that out. This course has a peer instructor assigned to it. I have a wonderful peer instructor. Her name is Kateri, and she is a sophomore. She took this course last fall. She's a Dean's List student. Doing very well with her own studies. She's looking a little tired to me these days. She does a lot, but she and I just this morning sort of figured out how we're going to do this. So on Wednesday, at the second class of the week, we only meet twice a week. So on Wednesday, she is going to pass around a piece of paper and have each student choose a unique identifier. So she'll get their names and their unique identifiers. And then she's going to take that away. And then I'm going to create a survey that pretty much asks the standard midterm chat questions about, what's helping them learn, what's making it difficult for them to learn, are there things I could be doing better, are there things they could be doing better. I'll have them enter the unique identifier. So that way we'll have a list of identifiers and we'll know who's done it so they can get some participation credit for having completed the survey. But I won't have any way of connecting names to individual responses because I won't see what those unique identifiers are. Kateri can just,
Right.
she can take care of the bookkeeping and she won't see what their responses were.
So you've created sort of a wall there, so where you can
built a wall.
You don't have to bring and take the extra time in a class where, again, you're halfway through it already this semester. You don't have to take the extra time of bringing in someone from the outside to facilitate this. You've created sort of a blind.
Yeah, and I would have loved to have I actually would have loved to have somebody from here come and do a midterm chat, as threatening as that might be, but I just don't have time. I mean, we're halfway through, and I can't believe it.
Right.
I feel like we just started. So
well, and essentially you just did. Plus, you had Labor Day off. We talked about how that's
right.
a challenge for those of us teaching on Mondays this semester. And it happens every semester or almost every semester.
There's
something
something.
that always lands. Do your students realize that the class is almost halfway over? I mean, you seem very keenly aware of it. That it is. I would imagine it's unusual for them to have such a compressed learning experience in some ways.
I think it's very unusual for them because these are first semester freshmen, so
Right.
they're basically used to courses that last 185 days. I mean, they're
that's
coming
true.
from high school where not all, but many, if not most, courses last for the whole year, and they have 4 quarters. I actually said to them this morning, we're on Wednesday, we're halfway through this class, and they sort of jerked their heads up and looked around a little bit.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Deer in the headlight-ish. And I said, that means, but at the end of this course, you'll be halfway through your first semester at college. So you're halfway through your...
You're halfway through your first half.
Yeah, you're halfway through your first half.
Yeah.
So a few of them looked a little dismayed or taken aback,
Sure.
but nobody got up and ran out of the room or anything.
Well, that's true. And you did tell me you had a couple students drop the class, but that's normal
I've
for
lost
any
3,
course,
and
right?
it just breaks my heart,
Yeah.
and I don't know. One of them came to college and immediately got very sick,
Yeah.
and I get that, and
Yeah.
I don't know. She came to class after missing a couple of classes, and I am so sick, and she looked awful, and so she was either physically sick or she was just frantically homesick, one or the other. So that one I sort of expected. There was one that was just a total surprise. I was like, whoa, I don't understand this at all. And another one sort of hadn't been doing the work, so
The writing was kind of on the wall, as it were.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely surprised because they had just sort of disengaged, but anyway, but it still feels like I really started out the semester meaning to catch people really early. And I did. At the end of, after 4 classes, I emailed 4 students who were not turning in all their work. And I said, hey, let's meet to talk about your progress in this class. And maybe that was too threatening of language because 2 of them immediately dropped. The other 2 came in to see me and were very grateful and clueless. They had no idea that they weren't doing well. I think because, at that point it was pretty early and there hadn't been a lot of work. So just missing 1 or 2 assignments was really hurting them.
Yeah.
And so it didn't seem like a big deal to them until it sort of was. So.
And plus, timing-wise, after 4 class periods or 2 weeks for this particular course,
it was a quarter of the class.
Well, it not only was it a quarter of the class, so the grades are having a little bit more significance. You're a quarter of the way through the semester, but also that's about the same time that the deadline is to drop a class and still get all your money back and everything else. So they had, so I think they probably had.
They may have had that deadline. I used to keep track of that deadline and kind of let students know if I thought they might be.
Yeah, aren't you always afraid? Aren't you always afraid to bring it up though?
Yeah,
I'm kind of like that too.
I kind of hate to mention it. It's like, whoa, are they going to run?
Yeah,
run
would you like to?
screaming?
If you really hate this course, then you're out.
Now's the time.
Now's the time to pack your parachute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we all have students drop courses all
I
the
know.
time.
And
so,
I know better to take it than to take it personally, but
Yeah.
that's just who I am.
We always wonder the one that got away, right?
Right, yeah.
That sort of thing. So what, when you went into this course with a lot of questions about what do 18-year-old fresh on campus college students, what are they like nowadays? Because you hadn't taught in about 10 years. You hadn't taught freshmen in about 12 years, I think you said.
I was terrified.
Are you still terrified?
I said that. I think I said that. You know what? I got into the class the first day, and it was like I'd never left. I mean, it was just, it was so, it felt so good and so natural for me. So I sort of got over that initial, awfulness right away, or that initial terror. But I discovered that the students are, I don't know if people here understand how amazingly nice our students are. I mean, our students are just incredibly nice human beings. For the, I mean, I guess I can't say that about all 21,000 of them, but
yeah, no,
but generally speaking,
yeah,
and they're still nice.
yeah,
They weren't. They have not appeared to me to be any more needy or wanting their hands held or anything like that than freshmen ever have been. So maybe it's because I'm used to teaching freshmen. Maybe that sort of doesn't show up until later. Maybe people teaching juniors and seniors don't expect them to need that anymore, and they're finding that they do. But I'm not finding that. I'm actually finding them a little reluctant to ask for help.
yes.
So
Yes.
and that also has not changed.
Yeah.
That's always kind of been the case with freshmen. I think the thing that surprised me that shouldn't have is, there's a lot of literature out there that says, hey, just because they're digital natives doesn't mean that they're great with technology or the kinds of technology that they need to use for their schoolwork.
Right.
So one of the things I asked them early, I had them do a student information sheet after the first day. I asked them how comfortable they felt with technology, and almost all of them said, "Oh yeah, I'm comfortable with technology."
Right.
One student said, "Well, my dad and I have built 3 computers, but I'm not sure I really could say I'm comfortable with technology." I was like, "Well, okay, that's fine." But in fact, many of them have been flummoxed by things like I asked them to insert a photograph in a document. Or to insert a photograph into their blog on ReggieNet, their journals. And they would write the whole journal entry, and then at the end they'd say, well, I have a picture, but I don't know how to put it in here.
Right.
And so, we're having to address some of that. And I wasn't surprised that they weren't altogether comfortable with ReggieNet, although I think more and more our students are coming with some experience with learning management systems.
Yes,
in their,
I think so
in their
too.
schools.
Yeah.
But ReggieNet is different. But I have had a couple of students sort of, I don't know, that has been the stated cause for late assignments or something like that.
I had trouble with ReggieNet.
I didn't know how to do that in ReggieNet.
Right.
And so could be an excuse, but I think not in every case. I think sometimes they just didn't. So,
well, one of the first things I do, and this is with juniors even, but I also did this when I taught freshmen a few years ago, and ReggieNet was new and young. I actually created an assignment where the assignment is essentially to upload something. And so especially if I'm dealing with media files other than Word documents or something, I have them record it, and you figure out how to get that off your phone and on the ReggieNet.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it in class next week.
Yeah.
In fact, we're talking about it tonight.
Yeah.
So.
I probably should have done that. And I could very easily have done that on the student information sheet because I could have had them include a picture of themselves. And
Sure.
I have been incorporating into the assignment links to the videos for students on the student help videos that we have on the CTLT website.
Yes.
There's little videos like how to submit an assignment in ReggieNet.
How to check your grades.
How to check your grades in ReggieNet. And so I've been putting those as hyperlinks, but we didn't have one, for example, on how to create your blog in ReggieNet, you know, and so I sort of tried to give instructions for that, but that wasn't as successful.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think when we talk about digital, so the phrase digital native to me has changed a little bit. I think the original assumption is, just like you said, that they're all computer wizards because they grew up,
Right.
with computers next to their
it's
cribs
just
or
a
whatever.
no-brainer. They just absorbed it in
Right.
the womb or something.
I really think, though, that what it really speaks to is more of a cultural impact, that they're used to being connected. They have a need to
Yeah.
be connected in
Yeah.
ways that we're not. They're used to being able to, they're much more of a look it up on the spot sort of
Yes.
generation than we are people who would read books to figure out things and stuff like that. So I think that doesn't surprise me to hear you say that.
They do like, so a couple of times I've asked them to bring things to class, and I've said, hey, I need you to have this work in class. You can bring it as a hard copy, printed out on paper, or you can bring it on your laptop or your phone or, whatever mobile device you have with you in class. And they like that, and they tend to bring it, they seem to be, well, I don't know. Maybe they're about 50-50, but
Yeah.
at least half of them want to do that. They want to bring their phone or their, usually it's a phone or their laptop, and just show it to us that way and call it up. So
There was an interesting study that I've used in some of the workshops I do here at CTLT a few years ago that talked about students' attitudes and looking at the difference between social behavior, what we would call off-task behavior in class with these devices and educational purposes for using this technology. So social reasons to use technology and educational reasons. Students like to have the option to use stuff for educational reasons, but they resent being told they have to.
yeah.
That's
and
kind
I
of the
really-
catch-22.
I honestly didn't care. So
Yeah.
as long as they had access to the work, it is interesting. I don't think there's even a technology policy or statement in my syllabus, because I sort of thought, well, I'll wait, and if it's a problem, we'll talk about it and we'll figure it out. I've had zero problems with students being, on their cell phones or, they're using them. I have a couple who come in. There are several of them that this is their first class of the day, and some of them tend to get there pretty early.
Sure.
And so they'll come in and sit down in the class, or out in the hall, 10 or 15 minutes before class starts. But and they'll have their phones out or they'll have their earplugs in or whatever. But pretty uniformly, and maybe this is because they're still freshmen and they're used to high school rules, but
I think
they're
that's probably
unplugged,
exactly, yeah.
I
think that's what it is. When wait till I have them as juniors. I'll tell you the horror stories.
It'll be a different story.
Because they will have learned it. No, because when when the last time I taught freshmen would have been the fall of 2015.
Okay, it's a couple years ago.
So 2 years ago. It's not that long ago. And that, I swear, that was the first kind of cohort of students who went through all 4 years of high school with a mobile device, or at least most of them did. Okay. I mean, there's always the socioeconomic thing, and can they afford it? But I think almost all of them probably had a cell phone at least, or something like that.
Yeah.
And they had been told to put the bleeping thing away for 4 years. So no matter how egalitarian, how open I wanted to be, building a learning community, no, they actually were reluctant at first to take them out. Yeah. So that might be some of what you.
That's probably it. I mean, I don't think it's any kind of magic bullet or anything.
No,
because
not at all.
just, as I say, I didn't even address it. I just decided, I'll wait till it becomes. If it becomes an issue, we'll talk about it. Yeah. But it has not yet. So
okay, well that's good.
So lucky me. Woo!
Yeah. No, you kind of looked out there. Now you may find. I'll be interested to see if that's reflected in the midterm feedback that you get in some way. We'll have to see how they, if they say anything about it, or if they're just not sure what to make of it yet. Because again, it is early days for them.
They may not be sure what to make of me yet.
Well,
they're like, whoa.
There is something we've talked before about how exciting it is to have freshmen their first semester on campus. And teaching is always an awesome responsibility, but you do kind of feel, don't you, that the pressure is a little bit more because you are going to be judged, but also you may end up being what they judge everyone else by in subsequent.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah.
Oops.
Oops.
I don't know.
Yeah. I will say the thing that I was worried about has to a certain extent come to pass. As I was leaving the class today, there were some other people coming into the classroom. I'm not sure that there's a class. I don't think there's a class in that classroom right after me. But there's a reading group that meets in there occasionally. And last week there was some random thing. I don't even know what it was. But anyway, there was somebody coming with students and they were using the room. But this morning as I was leaving, some of my colleagues were standing in the hallway and they said, "Ooh, master teacher, here comes the master teacher from her work." And I was just like, don't even do that. Don't even do that. Don't go there because, there's still plenty of time for me to just fall on my face. And I have no idea what the students are thinking. I mean, except for the 3 who left. But and I don't even know
but I don't
they
think
were.
that has to do with it.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah.
But so I'll know more after the midterm feedback.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up with one final question, and we kind of discussed this a little bit before we started recording. Have you had an aha moment, or have you seen the lights turn on at some point this semester?
We had a funny moment this morning. They were quite engaged this morning, and I wasn't sure how they would take this. I had told them we would spend some time this semester, or this 8 weeks, talking about how learning works so they could sort of apply that to their other classes. And so we spent I planned a class today where we would talk about prior knowledge, which is something we always talk about here, activate their prior knowledge, make sure you're, connecting what they're learning with what they already know. And of course, what the research tells us is prior knowledge can help or prior knowledge can hinder, it depends on the circumstances. But I wanted to take that from a student perspective. So what if you're a student and your instructor isn't spending the time activating prior knowledge? So what could you do as a student? So I told them that it's their job to access and assess prior knowledge. And they need to sort of figure out what the topic is. So, for example, if they have a reading assignment, they can look at the reading assignment, see, read the title, read the subtitles, get an idea, and then think about what they already know about this topic and what questions they have, but they should also think about how sure they are.
Oh, okay.
And
interesting.
We had talked earlier in the semester about cognitive dissonance and what that meant. So anyway, they had come to class with lists of things we already know about how learning works. And then I had them meet in small groups, and as a group they had to come up with 3 things that we're sure of, 3 things that we think probably aren't really true, and some questions that we have. So I said, okay, so what's one thing, drawing on the groups, what's one thing that you're, sure about? And sure enough, the first thing that came out of their mouth, somebody raised his hand and said, we all have different learning styles.
And you said, I have a podcast you should listen to.
I said, okay, I'm so sorry. But that, in fact, is not true.
Yeah.
And they just all gaped at me
because it's so ingrained in the culture. We've talked about that.
And I told him, I said, this is cognitive dissonance for you, and I said, believe me, it's cognitive dissonance for me. I said, I have spent a 40-year-long teaching career with this in mind, and I said, now whoops, here's the research. So we all had kind of an aha moment. And I think it would help them to know that even we as teachers, or maybe especially we as teachers, have moments where we have to say, okay, well, I've been doing that for 30 years, but oops, my bad. And we have to, readjust.
Yeah,
so
we do.
Yeah.
Oh, Claire, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Let's Talk Teaching. Find out more about our podcast. Go to our website, ctlt.illinoisstate.edu. You'll find links to this episode and past episodes as well. For Dr. Claire Lamonica and everyone here at the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology, until we talk again, happy teaching.